Hi there. So we're going to talk about traditional long division today. Traditional long division uses these 4 steps over and over that I abbreviate with D, M, S, and then an arrow pointing down. The first step for a long division problem will always be divide. Next, multiply, subtract, and bring down. So that's going to be the 4 steps you see me reference over and over today. We're also going to be dealing with some decimals in long division problems, and it's important to keep the decimal rules in mind so you know when it's okay to stop a long division problem if it goes on forever. So there's 3 different cases of things that could happen. 1, the problem could just end. Your answer could be a decimal that ends like 10.5. That means you're done with the problem. You could also run into a repeating decimal like 1.3 repeating. Once you can tell that your answer is going to be a repeating decimal, you can stop. The last thing that could happen if the decimal doesn't end and doesn't repeat is that you will have to round your answer to the hundredths place. This happens because not all decimals end or repeat. Sometimes they go on forever with different numbers, and we don't want to be solving a problem forever for the rest of our lives. So that's why we say it's okay to stop when you get to the hundredths. When you get far enough into the problem to round to the hundredths place. I'm going to demonstrate this using the problem 729 divided by 6. The first number is called the dividend. This is the number that is being split up. The second number is called the divisor. That is how you're splitting the dividend up. And the answer that you get is going to be called the quotient. That is the answer to a multiplication problem. To a division problem. We are doing division today. So to set up long division, you always put the dividend inside the long division symbol. Looks like that. You put the divisor on the outside. So it kind of reverses their order. This would still be 729 divided by 6, even though now the 729 actually looks like it comes second. When you do long division, you're always working in columns. So this is not going to be required, but some people like to make columns on their work so they can kind of focus on one column at a time. And each of those is a different place value. I'm also going to write our steps off to the side here. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. So we could remind ourselves of the order that we're solving this in. So the first question that I'm going to ask myself is how many times does 6 go into 7? The reason for that is because 7 is the first, it's the number in the first column that I have highlighted. I'm ignoring the 2 and the 9 for now. 6 goes into 7 1 time. So that's my division step. And I haven't even touched the 2 or the 9 yet. I need to go through divide, multiply, subtract, and bring down before I get to move over to my next column. So now I'm ready for multiply. And it's going to be whatever number I just wrote times the divisor. So I'm going to do 1 times 6. Actually, it may be nicer if I line these up with the steps that I'm doing. So 1 times 6 is my multiplication step. And I'm going to write that answer in the same column I'm working in. Now I'm ready for my subtraction step. My subtraction step is going to be 7 minus 6. It's set up like a subtraction problem right here. 7 minus 6 is 1. And notice I still haven't touched the 2 or the 9. So next, I would be asking myself how many times does 6 fit into 1, but I know that's not going to be big enough, which is why we have our bring down step. You bring down the next number in the next column. This is what pushes me over to the second column. And now I go back to the top, back to divide. So I'm going to erase all of this. So now I'm asking myself, how many times does 6 go into 12? So if you notice, I'm totally done with the 7, and now I'm focusing on the 12 down here. 6 goes into 12 twice. I'm ready for the multiplication step. Here I'm going to be doing 6 times 2. I don't do 6 times 12 up here because I've already used the 1. Just 6 times 2. 6 times 2 is 12. Now I'm ready for the subtraction step. 12 minus 12 is 0. And I'm still not done though because I still have the 9, the third column I haven't even touched yet. So now I'm going to do bring down, and I'm going to bring down the 9 to right there. And here we go again. Back to division. So now I'm wondering how many times does 6 go into 9? For each division step, you're always looking at the bottom, what's left. 6 goes into 9 1 time. Now on to my multiplication step, and I'm looking at this one up here. 6 times 1 is 6. I've already used the other one and the 2, so I'm not going to use them again. Now I'm on to the subtraction step, and I'm going to be doing 9 minus 6. 9 minus 6 is 3. I know I need to bring down, but there's nothing left to bring down. So here's what I'm going to do. Instead of treating the 729 as just those digits, I'm actually going to rewrite the 729 as 729.0. That doesn't change the value of it. You can always add a 0.0 to anything and it's still the same number. And in fact, I'm going to add 3 zeros. And I'm going to explain why in a little bit. Whatever you do to the bottom with the decimal place, you also have to do to the top to the answer. So my answer is going to be 121 point something. I don't know what the decimal is going to be. And these 3 places that correspond with the zeros that I just added are the tenths place, the hundredths place, and the thousandths place. It represents how far out I need to solve this problem until I can stop it. After I solve to the thousandths place, I'm going to get an idea of if my decimal ends, if my decimal repeats, or if I need to round to the hundredths. Those were the decimal rules that we talked about earlier. I need to solve to the thousandths place in order to round to the hundredths place, because you need 3 digits in order to round it to 2 digits. So that's why we go out 1 place farther, so we can round it accurately. We might not need to round, it might end or repeat, but we'll see. So now that I've changed my number, I've added these 3 new columns in. So I'm going to now go to my bring down step, and I'm going to bring down the 0 that I just added. It's not going to be thought of, though, as 3.0. We just think about it as 30. And I'm back to division. 6 goes into 30 5 times. Now I can do multiply. 6, erase all of that. 6 times 5. I've already used all the other numbers. And I don't think about it as 0.5, just 5. So I'm really kind of ignoring that decimal spot. 6 times 5 is 30. So now I subtract 30 minus 30. That gets me 0. Now this time when I got 0, I don't have any other values to bring down. Everything else left in the problem are the 2 zeros I just added. And they don't really matter because 729.0 is the same as 729.00 or 000. They don't matter. They're still the same number. So now, since I've gotten 0 in the bottom of my subtraction and I have no other real numbers to bring down, I can end the problem. The problem ended on its own. The answer is 121.5. And you always write your answer off to the side. The grader should not have to look at your long division to pick out what you think the answer is. Because the grader doesn't know if you think the answer is 121.5, or do you think the answer is 0, or do you think the answer is 6? They don't know. So you have to write the answer by yourself. So that's our quotient, 121.5. Go ahead and try problem 1 pause the video and then come back when you're ready to go over it. All right, hopefully you're ready to go over it. I'm going to write down the rules: divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. So here, just because it's close to the top, I'm going to rewrite it. Otherwise, I normally wouldn't. Here, I'm going to be starting with how many times does 8 go into 7. I'm going to actually move this over. And here I'm looking at 8 going into 7. 8 goes into 7 0 times. So I can actually just move on to the second column right now because I wasn't able to do anything in the first column. So now instead of asking how many times does 8 go into 7, I'm going to be asking how many times does 8 go into 74. 8 goes into 74 9 times. So now I'm going to do 8 times 9, which is 72. I'm going to subtract 74 minus 72. That gives me 2. And again, I'm going to need to make it 74.000. I always just add 3 decimal places. I bring that decimal up to the top. And here are the 3 possibilities that show the maximum amount that I'm going to have to solve. So I bring down the 0. Now I'm back to the beginning. So I want to know, oops, I don't want all of this stuff. It was something else I wrote earlier, decided not to use it. All right, there we go. I want to know now how many times 8 goes into 20. 8 goes into 20 twice. Next multiplication, 8 times 2 is 16. Subtract 20 minus 16, I get 4. The problem still hasn't ended. I need to bring down another 0. I'm back to division. Remember, you're always looking at the bottom to decide what you're going to be dividing by. 8 goes into 40 exactly 5 times. 8 times 5 is 40. Subtract. Oops, not keeping track over here. 8 times 5. And then 40 minus 40. Subtract, you get 0. So it ended. We're done. We didn't have to use the third 0. So the answer is 9.25. Box my answer, and I'm done. Go ahead and try number 2. Pause the video. Come back when you're ready to go over it. All right, hopefully you've already tried it. I'm writing down my 4 steps. And they did not write this problem in long division for me, so I have to set it up. So 89 goes on the inside. Whatever you would say first goes on the inside. 89 divided by 6 is set up like this. So I'm starting with division, and I'm wondering how many times 6 goes into 8, because I'm looking at the first column only. 6 goes into 8 1 time. Now I need to multiply 6 times 1. That's 6. I need to subtract 8 minus 6, and that's 2. And then I need to bring down the 9. Now I'm ready to move on to my next column. So erase all this. So now I'm wondering how many times 6 fits into 29. 6 fits into 29 4 times. Oh, I'm sorry. Nope, 29 goes here. 6 fits into 29 4 times. So I write my answer in that same column. So now I'm doing 6 times 4. It's not 6 times 14 because I've already used the 1. I'm past that column now. 6 times 4 is 24. So I'm going to subtract 29 minus 24. That's 5. Next I have bring down. So again, adding my 3 decimal points. Bring that decimal straight up in the answer. And here's my 3 possibilities. It's really important to keep your columns lined up, because you don't want the decimal point in your answer to accidentally end up between the 1.4. So it does go after the 4. So I'm going to bring down the 0. It's not 5.0. We just treat it as 50. Once you have the decimal point in place, you basically ignore the decimal point. 50, here, I'm going to erase this. So my next question is, how many times does 6 go into 50? 6 goes into 50 8 times. 6 times 8 is 48. So I said 6 times 8. And now I need to subtract 50 minus 48. That's 2. Bring down another number. Here I go again. So same thing over and over. 6 goes into 20 3 times. 6 times 3 is 18. Subtract, and you get 2. Bring down the next 0. I have another 20. That actually kind of tells me something. If you keep bringing down 20s and you keep getting 6 goes into 20, kind of gives you a clue that your answer might be repeating. 6 goes into 20 3 times. I have another 3, and I can stop there. Once you've filled in your third blank, your thousands place, you get to stop. So now I have to decide what to do. I have 14.833. I'm either going to round it to the hundredths place or say that it's repeating. If you're not sure, you can solve another step. So 6 times 3 is 18. Subtract to get 2. Yeah, I'm going to be bringing down zeros forever, and I'm going to keep getting 6 goes into 20. I know this is going to be repeating. So I'm going to write my answer as 14.83 with just the 3 repeating. You did not have to solve that extra step, though. If you get the idea that it's repeating, you can stop and say that it's repeating. Pause the video and try number 3. Come back when you're ready to see the answer. All right, I'm going to start going through these a little bit faster so I don't waste so much of your time. So here, 4 does not go into 1, so I'm going to put a 0. When I go to the second column, now I'm looking at 11, the 11 right here. I needed help from the second column. 4 goes into 11 twice. 4 times 2 is 8. Subtract, you get 3. Bring down the 4. 4 goes into 34 8 times. 4 times 8 is 32. Subtract, you get 2. I'm going to add my 3 decimal points and my 3 spaces for them. Now I'm ignoring the decimal. It's there, it's in the answer, it's waiting for me. Brought down a 0. 4 goes into 25 times, so this is going to end. 4 times 5 is 20, and I'm done. Write the answer 28.5. You can still be writing down the steps. You could write divide, multiply, subtract, bring down for yourself. Number 4, try it, pause it, come back when you're ready to go over the answer. All right, so I do need to shrink number 3. It's coming up in my space here. So now I'm going to look at number 4. So I have 124 divided by 7. I start with how many times does 7 go into 1? It doesn't. So I move on to the next column. How many times does 7 go into 12? Goes in once. 7 times 1 is 7. Subtract, you get 5. Bring down the 4. 7 goes into 54. Let's see, so 56 would be 8, so 7 times. 7 times 7 is 49. Keep everything nice and lined up. 54 minus 49 is 5. I'm going to have to add my 3 zeros here. And set up my answer. Now I can ignore the decimal points. 7 goes into 50 7 times. But this doesn't mean it's repeating. Last time I had 54, now I have 50. It's a different case. 7 times 7 is 49. Subtract, you get 1. Bring down the next 0. 7 goes into 10 1 time. 7 times 1 is 7. Subtract to get 3. Bring down my last 0. You get 30. 7 goes into 30 4 times. And now that I've filled in the third spot, I can stop. I have 17.714. I can either round it to the hundredth spot or I can say that it's repeating. I don't have evidence that it's repeating. Interestingly, if I keep solving for like 3 more steps, it actually does repeat, but we're not going to make you do that. You only have to go to the thousands place and then you can decide. So since I have no evidence that it's repeating and I'm choosing not to keep solving, I look at the 4 to round the 1, and it's going to keep the answer at 17.71. So that's my final answer. Go ahead and try the last 4 problems, and then come back when you're ready to move on with the video. All right, so I thought that I would just share the answers to the last 4 problems. So 136 divided by 9 ends up being 15.1 repeating. 214 divided by 3 ends up being 71.3 repeating. 165 divided by 2 ends up being 82.5 exactly. And 312 divided by 5 ends up being 62.4 exactly. We're going to take a look at the next page now. So this page is actually not very different, but we're not starting with whole numbers here. So let's look at number 1. They've actually given us a decimal place. So right away, bring it up into your answer. Then you won't have to think about the decimal anymore. And then you're still thinking about those decimal rules from before. Here's how much they gave us. So I know I'm going to have to solve those two no matter what because they gave it to us. I may have to add 1 0 to come up with my thousands place. So you always have to solve what the problem gives you, even if it's 6 decimal places. But if they don't give you up to 3, you would only have to solve up to the 3rd decimal place. So this is the maximum I'm going to have to do. Pause the video, try it, come back when you're ready to go over the answer. All right, hopefully you're ready to go over this one. So I start with how many times does 8 go into 2? It doesn't. So I'm going to write a 0 there. I'm going to move on to the next column. 8 goes into 29 3 times. 8 times 3 is 24. Subtract, get 5, bring down the 8. So here's the only difference. Instead of bringing down a 0, I'm bringing down an 8. I'm not thinking of it as 5.8. It's still a whole number. I'm ignoring the decimal. 8 goes into 58 7 times. 8 times 7 is 56. Subtract, you get 2. Bring down the 5. 8 goes into 25 3 times. 8 times 3 is 24. Subtract, you get 1. And now I'm bringing down that 1 digit that I added. 8 goes into 10 once, and I can stop there. I have no evidence that it repeats. If I keep solving, I think this one will probably end eventually, but we don't have to keep solving. So I'm going to round my answer to 3.73. There you go, box your answer. So if they give you the decimal point, it doesn't make the problem any harder. You just automatically bring it up to the same spot in your answer and then solve. So we're going to stop the video there. Good luck with that rest of the page, and thanks for watching.